Today I'm gonna give you my review on the Sigma 16mm f1.4. How's it going? My name is Jussi and this channel is all about filmmaking tips and tutorials and camera gear. Today I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the Sigma 16mm f1.4 for Sony E-mount cameras. I'm gonna go through the pros and the cons of this lens and why I think it's a must-have lens for the Sony A6000 series cameras. Also, if you're interested in the lens, I have it linked in the description below. Let's start with the pros. This comes around $400, which is a great bang for your buck like with most Sigma lenses. But honestly, at first I wasn't really interested in this lens because I have been used to shooting with a 10mm focal length, and I just felt that the 16mm focal length isn't wide enough. But then I tried it for a couple of client shoots and I absolutely loved the results. I used this lens for many of the shots when I filmed a cocktail video and a storytelling video for a Filipino restaurant called Paisano here in Helsinki, and the results, they were just incredible. I noticed that it's got this very cinematic full frame look. When you pair the 16mm Sigma lens with the Sony A6500, it's a 24mm full frame equivalent, which is actually a very ideal focal length because it's wide enough to get close to the action and the subject, but it doesn't distort the image like the 10mm focal length. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term full frame equivalent, it basically means that 16mm on a full frame is actually 16mm. But because my Sony A6500 has a 1.5 times crop, it means that when I use the 16mm Sigma lens on that camera, it's actually a 24mm full frame equivalent. And actually one of the reasons why I decided to try this focal length is because Peter Lindgren shoots most of his epic B-roll with his full frame Sony A7 III and his Sony 24mm f1.4 lens. I like the sharp image of the lens, and because it has a wide open aperture of f1.4, it brings more light to the sensor, which makes it ideal for low light situations. And also because the aperture is wide open, it gives you this nice bokeh, also known as background blur, which is super cinematic. I was also surprised at how good the autofocus actually is on this lens. Even though often third-party lenses don't have a good autofocus with Sony cameras, but I felt like the autofocus with this lens was almost as good as with the native Sony lenses, if not as good. Okay, let's talk about the cons of this lens. The first thing is that it doesn't have any kind of stabilization inside the lens, and I really wish it did because I shoot a lot of handheld footage. But it's not actually a deal breaker for me because if you film handheld footage, you should anyway learn the techniques to get stable footage handheld. And my Sony A6500 has an in-body image stabilization anyways. So it's not that big of a deal for me. Also, one downside of this lens is that the focus ring is focused by wire, which means that the focus is electronical, which makes focus pulling a lot harder because the focus ring spins infinitely. Now that being said, neither this one is a deal breaker for me because personally I set the focus always before shooting and I usually don't have to change the focus during the shot. And also one downside, depending on your needs, is that it's not the best vlogging lens, but it's still usable. But the 16mm focal length is not the widest lens, so you might have to hold the camera a little bit further in order to vlog properly with this lens. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, subscribe to my channel and click the bell notification so you will be notified every Monday when I upload a new video. Thanks for watching and see you next Monday. Take care.